Slovakia's government has approved a plan to give Ukraine its fleet of Soviet-era MiG-29 fighter jets. The decision announced on Friday makes Slovakia the second NATO member country to heed the Ukrainian government's pleas for warplanes to help defend against Russia's invasion. On Thursday, Poland said that it would send Ukraine around a dozen MiG-29 fighter jets, with the delivery of the first four expected in the coming days. A Kremlin spokesman called the promised planes an example of NATO members raising the level of their direct involvement in the conflict. But he predicted that the fighters wouldn't change the course of the war. Well, joining us now to discuss the issue of NATO fighter jets and Ukraine is Mr. Richard Shimooka, a defense procurement expert and senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. He joins us from Brussels. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me.
So, why are Poland and Slovakia sending over the MiG-29 fighter jet in particular to Ukraine? What do we know so far of the capabilities of these aircraft?
So these are broadly the same type of aircraft that the Ukrainians use currently. Their versions are actually just a little bit more upgraded. They've seen some Western upgrades and make them a little bit more capable than the ones that the Ukrainian are using. However, these countries are actually in the process of modernizing their own air forces. So in some cases, that they're being replaced by, Poland's case, actually the F-35. So they have a surplus of these older jets that they're able to give the Ukrainians to bolster their air force in their fight against Russia.
And why have NATO countries been reluctant to send Ukrainian or to Ukraine fighter jets until recently? Is it simply because they are modernizing their fleets right now? That is why they're sending these jets.
Well, in broadly, most NATO countries actually utilize Western fighter jets, and these are much more complex. There's a much greater cliff for them, for a much greater sort of challenge for the Ukrainians to basically operate them. As a result, there's been a large amount of hesitance to actually give them fighters like, let's say, the F-16 or the Saab Gripen. But in the case of the MiG-29, because they already use the type, there's no challenge for them to retrain their crews, their air crews, or their maintainers. As a result, it's very easy for them to just give them the aircraft. In some ways, I mean, it's really, they can use them either for spare parts. They can add to aircraft that they've lost. There's a lot more. It gives the Ukrainians a lot more flexibility in their air operations.
And do you expect other NATO members to maybe follow suit and send fighter jets to Ukraine as well?
Unless they are these sort of former Soviet Union types, like the MiG-29, it's unlikely at this time. However, I expect, like, if the war sort of, if there was a ceasefire or there was some sort of agreement that there would be peace, I think you at that time you would see the Ukrainians push to modernize their air force towards Western types, because at that stage it's much easier for them to sort of set up the training and the sustainment enterprise that's required for them to operate Western jets.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Russia's response to all of this. We know Russia has said that this it means that NATO members are raising their direct involvement in the conflict. So, do you see things potentially escalating when it comes to tensions between NATO and Russia?
Not really. I think they're actually much more capable systems that we've already given them that would potentially sort of escalate it. And we saw absolutely no real sort of tangible response beyond some rhetoric from the Russian government. This really just follows in the path of other sort of systems that we've given. So I think that's just more sort of bluster that coming out of the Russian Federation, but it won't really actually result in any sort of actual tangible efforts.
All right, and bringing this back home to Canada, what do we know so far of Canada's military support in Ukraine, and whether you see maybe Canada donating jets in the near future?
I don't think we would offer any jets, even though we are retiring a significant portion of our current CF-18 fleet. The reality is that, again, this is a Western type, same challenges for them, for the Ukrainians to actually take them and utilize in their air force. Rather, I think we'd see more of the same, where we provide them, let's say, munitions like we just recently, more munitions like we just recently announced, or other pieces of hardware that currently are used, or they can more easily integrate into their operations.
All right, Mr. Shimooka, just about a minute left here, but is there anything that you're watching for next as these jets roll out towards Ukraine?
Not so much the jets, but over the winter, Western states have provided the Ukrainians quite a bit of arms, specifically main battle tanks, armored personnel carriers, and whatnot, that are intended to be used for a major offensive that's supposed to happen in the spring. Now, we don't know actually when that offensive is going to occur, but there's a lot riding on this for the Ukrainian side, because this will be a big signal whether or not the support that the Western states have given will actually return some sort of results on the battlefield, and it may have some determining effect how this war may conclude in the future.
Lots to keep our eyes on. Mr. Shimooka, thank you again for your time today.
Thanks for having me.